All right, so we talked about the bad bacteria. Now let's talk about the good. Without the good, our lives would not be able to function. We need bacteria. So that is something I can't stress enough. This idea of, oh, let's just bleach everything and get rid of all the bacteria in the world or all the bacteria here. You're throwing out the good with the bad. And throwing out the good is a huge problem. I'm not encouraging keeping the bad around, but we need to be selective when we're getting rid of things, because we get rid of the good bacteria, we're going to have huge problems ecologically. Our own health will be impacted massively if we were to get rid of all the good bacteria along with the bad. So again, it creates a dynamic challenge. So huge opportunity for those of you interested in the molecular field, pharmaceutical field. Can we create antibiotics that are more specific to certain bacteria instead of kind of the broad spectrum approach, like dropping napalm? Some friendlies got killed in that napalm fire. Well, but we got rid of the bad guys. We need to get better at it. So, all right. So one way there's good bacteria is through nitrogen fixation. There are bacteria that can actually grab atmospheric nitrogen and convert it to ammonia. The plant then can use the ammonium. So the picture you're looking at is of what's called a root nodule. See these little circles here? They look like little balls. That is a root nodule. That houses bacteria. There's actually tons and tons of bacteria here that are in that little root nodule. And they grab atmospheric nitrogen and then attach another nitrogen to it or attach 3 hydrogens to 1 nitrogen to create ammonia, and the plant absorbs the ammonium, uses the ammonia in all sorts of metabolic processes. Try growing beans without nitrogen. Very limited in productivity. So this is why you'll see farmers spraying anhydrous on the field to enhance that ammonium content or nitrogen content for certain crops, especially soybeans, legumes, etc. So definitely some good guys. So we need to be careful if we're going to dump antibiotics or chemicals on a field that kill bacteria. That's a big problem because we're killing the good ones. So rhizobium is one of the actual types of bacteria that will form those root nodules in legumes, bean plants, things like that. And what's crazy is the bacterial cells are actually inside the root cell. Because remember the size thing we talked about at the very, very beginning? This is a tiny bacterial cell that can actually live inside the cell of a plant. So, kind of crazy, but important. All right, let's bring it more home. Let's go into your intestinal tract, or any of our intestinal tracts. We have hundreds to thousands of species of bacteria in there. It's a nasty environment, but hopefully we're never looking in it. These bacteria are a huge benefit to our health. They break down food. They help digest food and make vitamins for us. So I want you guys, again, raise your hand here. Who's ever had a bacterial infection, you've taken antibiotics, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, my tummy doesn't feel so good. Because the antibiotic is killing off the bad bacteria, but at the same time, it's wiping out the good ones that are in your stomach and your intestinal tract. So there's that catch-22. I got to get rid of the bad guys, but I'm also getting rid of the good guys. So here's a very simple remedy. Hopefully you guys already know this, but you can just go to the store, get a container of this stuff, eat it for breakfast, and it will help with your stomach issues if you're taking an antibiotic. So anybody know what it is? Hopefully you guys said yogurt. If you look at yogurt, one of the ingredients in yogurt is live active cultures of bacteria. Those are the good guys, though. Those are the ones that we want in our stomach, in our intestinal tract, to help digest and break down food. So, yay for yogurt. Give it a big smile. That's supposed to be a big smile. So, all right, let's look at the next one here. So now, here's kind of the, be careful. E. coli is a good bacteria. It's in our intestines. Not pathogenic, but if it gets out, then it can be problematic. One of the tests we do when we look at water quality monitoring is we do an E. coli test to see is there pathogenic or bad bacteria in that water. So we'll look for E. coli. When I do water quality research in Belize in Central America, it's a standard test. Let's take a look at the E. coli test. Coliform bacteria tells us if there's pathogenics, potentially, if there's pathogenic stuff in the water. So good guys in the intestine, bad guys when they get out of the intestine. We need to be careful of those. So, all right, ecologically, prokaryotes play a lot of different roles in the environment. Decomposers, absolutely essential. If we didn't have them out there, what's going to happen to dead stuff? Just think about the leaves that come off the trees. You cut your grass if you don't pick up the clippings, which you shouldn't. What happens to all that dead grass? That's one of the main roles, or we could call it ecological niches, of bacteria is to decompose things, break them down, recycle the nutrients. Quite often, they live in association with other species. We call this symbiont. Symbiont is just kind of a broad spectrum term that two species live and work together. Mutualism, they're both happy. They both have a positive benefit from this relationship. Parasitism, one species is happy, the other species not happy. Yeah. Usually we think of things like tapeworms and ticks and mosquitoes as parasites. Well, bacteria can do the same thing too. So we don't want those bacteria. What is kind of interesting, we're learning more about this as we do more research in the oceans. There are bacteria that produce bioluminescent colors. So some species of fish live in the ocean and they live below the level of light penetration, but they can give off color. And that's because of bacteria. It's one way of bioluminescing is using bacteria. There's also enzymes involved in another bioluminescent aspect, which we'll talk about later in the semester. But all sorts of different roles for these things. Those of us heading, or those of you heading towards research, check out bacteria and their role in bioremediation. Can we use them to remove pollutants from the environment, break down oil, destroy waste product? Take a look at the news. See if you guys can find this article. If you do, please send it on. I'd love to share it with the whole class. I lost it, but there was an article about bacteria that can eat plastic. That would be incredible. There is so much plastic pollution on our planet. It's disgusting. In 20 to 30 years, there will be more plastic in the ocean than fish. How do we get rid of that? Maybe there's a bacteria out there that can decompose it, break it down, recycle the nutrients. So that's the idea behind bioremediation. Huge potential there. Again, we use bacteria to produce vitamins. I got to turn this one into red and highlight it. Antibiotics. Where do you think your antibiotics come from? They come from bacteria. If bacteria A produces an antibiotic to kill bacteria B, we want it. So then, oh, that's supposed to be a B. That's a bad B. So then we figure out what is this product? How can we mimic and create this product in the laboratory so then we can kill infection bacteria B? And then the same thing with C and D and E and F and so on. They're also being used to produce hormones. So we need hormone supplements. Well, bacteria can do a lot of those, produce a lot of those things. Ethanol, gas production, energy production? Can we take waste material, feed it to bacteria, have them break it down, and turn it into gasoline, biofuels? So depending on what you did in Bio 111, you may have discussed this a little bit, but ethanol production, some of it is being done with bacteria, also can be done with fungi, but it's possible to genetically engineer these bacteria to be little gas factories for us. So lots of different uses, huge research potential and research opportunities for those of you interested in this. So, okay, the last thing to wrap up with is how this nitrogen cycle works when we look at an aquatic ecosystem. So please remember, this is in the aquatic system. Things work a little differently. Oh, sorry, let's just go like this. Things work a little differently on land. Blue. I'm just going to make it easy. Water, aquatic ecosystems. Can't write with this. There we go. All right, so the nitrogen cycle in the aquatic system. So there's your fish. It poops. Wastes are produced in the aquatic ecosystem. Happens all the time. It's produced, sometimes they're amino acids, sometimes it's uric acid, urea, ammonia, urine, etc., whatever the case may be. Generally, that waste product is produced in the forms ammonia. Now, ammonia is toxic to fish. 0.2 to about 0.5 milligrams of ammonia per liter of water can kill a fish. So if you have a fish tank, you test for ammonia. If you get ammonia in there, your fish can die. So we need to break it down. So there is a group of bacteria, and I'm not going to ask you guys to remember the names of the bacteria here, but there is a bacterial population known as the Nitrococcus. Excuse me. Coccus. That's supposed to be round. That will break down ammonia and convert it to nitrite. Now, nitrite is toxic to fish if you have 5 milligrams per liter. So you can have a lot more nitrite in your tank before your fish will suffer compared to ammonia. So if you have a healthy population of these coccus bacteria, you're going to break down the ammonia, you're going to turn it into nitrite. But hopefully you have another bacterial population in there, a different bacterial population. I'm supposed to say bacteria. These are known as the nitrobacter bacteria. They will take nitrite and break it down to nitrate. Now nitrate, I don't have to worry about that. That's not toxic to my fish. It's non-toxic. So if I have those two bacterial populations in my fish tank, in my pond, in my lake, in my river, in my ocean, etc., I'm going to take this waste product, convert it all the way down to nitrate. Now the negative about nitrate is producers, I'm just going to go producers, ... things like algae, they love nitrate, and this can lead to algae blooms, which we'll talk about as we get into protists. Algae blooms are a problem. It's a thing called eutrophication, and it all stems back to too much of this going into the aquatic ecosystem. But the point being, if we have these bacteria in our ecosystem, we're going to convert these things and less likely to kill the fish back here. Fish can survive this, but too much, again, a bad thing. So, all right, so hopefully get your heads wrapped around bacteria, avoid the bad ones, encourage the good ones, and maintain a healthy balance with them.